65 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, all the continents on planet Earth were ruled by a huge group of reptilian creatures. Among them is a T-Rex called Logan, considered the king of Green Valley, who embarks on a mission to teach his son how to hunt. Jared's biggest goal is to one day become as strong and brave as his father, but he's afraid that he won't be able to take on such a responsibility. One day, while walking through the forest with his son, Logan notices the presence of a threat and tries to ward off the enemies with a loud roar. Then he hears some screams and runs towards them, realizing that there is a creature in need of help. A few kilometers away, a group of velociraptors has just eliminated a huge brachiosaurus. Now, the flock surrounds the young ones and threatens to devour them because their flesh is softer and juicier than that of their mother. However, just as Dan was about to grab one of the little ones, Logan appears and throws it away. As king of the place, he feels obliged to protect the weak and make sure that certain rules are followed to keep the peace. So the T-Rex corners the cowards who are planning to devour those youngsters and tries to drive them out of the valley. Just then, Fang, the leader of the gang, appears and challenges him to a duel. However, Stan is afraid to fight and manages to convince him to abandon the battle so that he has the opportunity to trap Logan in an ambush when he's not expecting it. With the promise that Fang and his friends will respect his rules, the T-Rex leaves and Jared accompanies him. The young dinosaur wonders why his father didn't attack those rebels, and Logan says that not all battles need to be settled with violence. According to him, a true king always knows when to act with mercy and never leads with hatred in his heart. The next morning, while Logan is talking to his friend Ben, Jared spots a lizard walking through the grass and decides to go after it. He tries to climb a tree to chase the little reptile, but ends up falling. Even so, he keeps trying to reach the animal and its head gets stuck in a tree. While trying to get loose, Jared falls off a mountain and comes across a dinosaur nest. Then, as he approaches the eggs, the female appears and attacks him. The young one runs back to his father for help and, when he hears the dinosaur's cries, Logan goes to meet him. Jared is about to be dealt a fatal blow when his father shows up and knocks out the Rhinoceros, who accuses them of being part of the group of thieves who have been stealing her eggs. Confused, Logan claims that he never stole any eggs, and the female tells him that she was attacked by a T-Rex while trying to stop 3 velociraptors from taking her eggs. Upon hearing this, Jared soon realizes that Fang's group was responsible for committing this crime, and Logan promises that he will find them to prevent it from happening again. Despite not believing the T-Rex's words, she leaves and Logan begins his hunt. Meanwhile, Fang and his gang continue to terrorize the inhabitants of the valley and are about to capture yet another prey when the king appears and attacks his adversary. At this point, Dan questions his leadership and suggests a battle between the 2 tyrannosaurs to decide who will rule the Green Valley. Meanwhile, Jarrett once again spots the lizard and continues his mission to capture it. Then, when he finally manages to catch it, he hears his father's roar and soon realizes that he is in danger. Immediately, the young one goes to find him and Logan tries to make up for the disadvantage he is facing in this battle. When he realizes that his boss is losing the duel, the velociraptors decide to interfere in the fight and attack his enemy. Determined to defend his position as ruler, Logan stands firm and manages to defeat them. However, when Jared arrives at the site of the battle, he spots Fang pushing his father off a cliff, and, when they see the dinosaur, the velociraptors decide to hunt him down. At this point, Ben decides to intervene and manages to catch the hatchling before it is captured. He is taking Jarrett to safety when he is attacked by another pterosaur and accidentally drops the little one in the middle of the forest. Hours later, he wakes up and starts searching desperately for his father. Suddenly, Dan appears and starts chasing him. During his escape, a toucan approaches Jarrett and asks him to follow it. The bird guides the little one along a path that the velociraptor doesn't know about, and he ends up having an accident during the chase. When they are in a safe place, Kai introduces himself and, realizing that Jarrett is hungry, takes the dinosaur to a place with plenty of food. The problem is that the T-Rex isn't used to eating fruit, so once again he starts chasing a small reptile that passes in front of him. Tired from the hunt, Jarrett gives up on catching the animal and walks down to the river to cool off. There, he spots a fish and tries to catch it, but is met with yet another failure. His only option is to eat some mushrooms he finds in the jungle, but he ends up getting sick after the first bite. Jarrett then passes out for a few hours, and when he wakes up, he finds Kai next to him with a bunch of grapes. However, instead of eating the fruit, he smells fresh meat and luckily finds a lifeless dinosaur nearby. While feeding, Hatchling is caught by a carnotaur who accuses him of stealing his meal. The big dinosaur then orders him to leave, and Jarrett has to flee so as not to become the next victim. However, a few days pass and the little one decides to follow Lucas in the hope of being able to feed on the remains of his hunt. But the carnotaur is capable of devouring all its prey and leaves nothing for the youngster. One day, when he realizes that he is starving, Lucas allows Jarrett to approach him and decides to share his meal with him. As the days go by, the Carnotaur decides to teach the little guy how to hunt, but he is clumsy and ends up scaring away the prey. Furious, Lucas orders the young dinosaur to stay away so that he can do the job himself, and Jarrett decides to go after his own food. So he decides to try his luck with an ankylosaurus, but ends up being attacked and has to flee. Frustrated, he goes back to Lucas and the Carnotaur agrees to train him once again, especially after discovering that he is the offspring of the King of Green Valley. Initially, Jarrett needs to train his agility and reflexes, as he is unable to dodge a simple stone. He then tries to climb a rock, but is also unsuccessful and ends up hurting himself jumping from one rock to another. The young dinosaur is impressed when he discovers that Lucas can cut down a tree with just his tail and decides to do the same. However, despite choosing the smallest tree in the forest, Jarrett is unable to cut it down and ends up injuring himself during the attack. After receiving instructions from his mentor, he makes a few more attempts and gradually improves his performance. That night, they both climb a large hill and, during the ascent, Jarrett slips. He is about to fall off a cliff when he uses his claws to stop the fall and, sometime later, he finally makes it to the top. On that day, the young dinosaur has a privileged view of the sunrise and feels that all his effort has paid off. After resting, he returns to his training and practices the exercises Lucas taught him every day. As the weeks go by, Jarrett begins to see the first results and finally manages to fell a tree by himself. Now he feels more confident to hunt on his own and ends up coming across the velociraptors from Fang's gang surrounding yet another young one. Driven by impulsiveness, the young dinosaur decides to confront them. So, seeing that Jarrett is in trouble, Kai decides to go and call Lucas and tells him that the little dinosaur needs help. Immediately, the Carnotaur rushes to find him and, meanwhile, Jarrett has to deal with those monsters on his own. As he is outnumbered, all he can do is dodge his enemies' attacks and buy time until his guardian appears. When Lucas arrives on the scene, the velociraptors try to escape, but he manages to capture them, using his tail and sharp teeth to throw them away from Jarrett. After the attack, the Carnotaur intimidates them with its roar and allows them to escape. After getting rid of the gang, Lucas tries to devour the Brachiosaurus hatchling, but the little T-Rex doesn't allow him to attack him. This attitude makes his mentor furious and he orders the two young ones to leave, but this time Jarrett is forbidden to return. As they walk through the forest, Lex introduces himself and thanks his new friend for his help. Noticing that the young dinosaur is hungry, Jarrett takes him to eat some fruit and asks where his family is. Then Lex explains that his gang migrates every year and, during the journey, he ended up separating from his mother. Soon afterwards, he was surrounded by velociraptors and was unable to return to his family. However, Lex believes that if he follows the North Star, he will be able to find them again. So Jarrett decides to accompany him on this journey. The next morning, after a long walk, the pair manage to find the herd of Brachiosaurus. But minutes before Lex meets his mother again, Dan shows up and, with the help of his friends, manages to surround the hatchlings. When he realizes he's cornered, Jarrett tries to distract the hunters while Lex goes to find his mother among the gang. During the escape, the little guy ends up being knocked down by Dan and faints. Stan is then drawn to lure Lucas to the location and manages to get the dinosaur to follow him after revealing that Jarrett has been captured. Then, when the Carnotaur reaches the gorge, the velociraptors start pushing rocks at Jarrett and Lucas runs to try and wake him up. What he doesn't realize is that he's walking into an ambush, because as he approaches, dozens of rocks are thrown down to crush him. So Lucas tries to get rid of the rocks while calling Jarrett, but the young dinosaur doesn't wake up and the Carnotaur ends up being buried. After getting rid of their enemies, the trio leave and Jarrett gets up straight away. Just then, he spots his mentor and manages to wake him up. Still weak, Lucas gets up and has to find a way to knock those rocks down so that he and the young dinosaur can get out of the gorge. After a few attempts, the pair give up fighting and, shortly afterwards, Jarrett hears Lex's voice. With the help of his mother, the little dinosaur helps his friend escape and Lucas invites Jarrett to join him again. So, after saying goodbye, Jarrett goes after his guardian and helps him walk home, as he was wounded during the battle. From that day on, Lucas begins to train his pupil to defeat Fang, because the way he is, the young dinosaur will never be able to defeat him. A few months later, Jarrett is much bigger and now resembles his father. Finally, after training hard every day, the T-Rex manages to defeat his master and feels ready to make his way. Over time, his friendship with Kai only grew and they became great companions. One day, while walking through the jungle, the toucan notices a battle going on nearby and Jarrett decides to go there to find out what's going on. At that moment, he sees a Carnotaur trying to hunt a Triceratops and notices that the predator's movements are similar to the ones Lucas taught him. After the battle, Jarrett approaches and asks if Rowan knows Lucas. The Carnotaur reveals that he's been looking for his friend for a long time. According to him, Lucas was the eldest son of the king of the Dragon Valley, so when his father perished, he was naturally recognized as the successor to the throne. However, his younger brother had always dreamed of ruling, so Lucas claimed the throne so that Leon could take his place. He then left the valley and has never been seen since. Happy to know that his old friend is alive, Rowan asks Jarrett to take him to him and, when he finds him, he reveals that the Dragon Valley is in danger. The Carnotaur tells him that Crew has invaded the kingdom and overthrown Leon's reign. Despite being worried about his brother, Lucas refuses to help him. So that night, Jarrett goes to talk to him and manages to change his mentor's mind. However, when they arrive in Dragon Valley, they end up being surrounded by a large group of Carnotaurs and Crew shows up to welcome them. The dinosaur invites Lucas and his friend to attend his coronation, which will take place the following morning. Before that, the deserter will have the opportunity to face him in a duel to decide who will be the next king. If Lucas wins, Crew says he will spare his brother's life in return. Determined to honor his father's reign, he accepts the challenge and the opponents agree that the duel will begin at sunrise. However, during the night, Rowan wakes up his old friend and asks him to accompany him. Believing it to be something important, Lucas goes after him, until he realizes that he is moving away from the valley. At that moment, he stops the run and asks what's going on. Rowan then asks for forgiveness and says that he was sent to lure Lucas away from Dragon Valley. That way, he won't be able to get there in time for the fight and Crew will be victorious. Rowan then explains that he didn't want to betray him, but Crew is with his children, so he had no choice. That morning, as his opponent didn't show up for battle, Crew declared himself the new king. But Jarrett opposed the tyrant's leadership and challenged him to a duel for the throne. Immediately, Crew's subjects set out to attack the young dinosaur, but the T-Rex attacks his opponents and manages to strike them all down. Noticing that Jarrett is a strong opponent, Crew accepts the challenge and the fight is about to begin when Lucas appears. Right at the start of the battle, he grabs Crew's arm and tries to distract him while the T-Rex goes to rescue Leon and Rowan's children. To complete this mission, he enlists Kai's help and asks the bird to distract one of the guards. After throwing stones at the Carnotaur, the toucan is chased by it. Suddenly, Jarrett comes out of hiding and attacks the second guard. Just then, Rowan appears and strikes the other enemy who is trying to attack the T-Rex. He then says that he is there to help him rescue the prisoners from Crew. Meanwhile, Luke continues to fight for the throne, but his enemy is stronger than he imagined and the Carnotaur realizes that he won't be able to defeat him. Exhausted, he gives up the fight and is knocked down. However, just as Crew is about to grab his neck, Lucas begins to receive support from his old gang and gathers the strength to continue the fight. The truth is that Crew has no support from his subjects, because they all know that he is a tyrant. So they decide to support Lucas and start hoping that he will emerge victorious from this battle. Encouraged by his people, the Carnotaur manages to defeat Crew and orders him and his few followers never to return to that valley. From now on, Lucas intends to join his brother to restore the glory of his kingdom and Jarrett receives an unusual visitor. Since the accident he suffered on the day of his father's perishment, Jarrett has never seen Ben again, but on that day, the pterodactyl appears and informs him that he has been looking for him all these months. The animal then tells him that, since becoming king of the Green Valley, Fang has done nothing but destroy the place and now he and his subjects are crueler than ever. Almost all the dinosaurs who lived in those lands decided to leave because they feared for their lives. So Ben begs Jarrett to come back and stop Fang's reign. That night, Lucas bids the young dinosaur farewell and says that he will remain in those lands to protect his people. He then encourages the dinosaur to do the same and claim the throne that is rightfully his. The next morning, Jarrett sets off for his old home and, as usual, finds the velociraptors cornering young ones as they are easier prey. When they find him, the trio believe that Logan is alive and has returned to seek revenge, but they soon realize that this is Jarrett and Dan claims that it was Fang who forced them to commit those barbarities. Upon hearing this, the young dinosaur decides to follow the lesson left by his father and act mercifully towards those creatures. However, he still has to settle the score with Fang and is taken to the same place where Logan and his enemy last dueled. Minutes later, the current king appears and says that Jarrett will join his father. He then attacks the young dinosaur and bites his neck, but Jarrett manages to get rid of the bite and attacks him back. However, Fang plays dirty and grabs the dinosaur's little arm. Then he pushes him over the edge of the cliff. At that moment, Dan appears, leading several of his companions who are there to end the reign of the T-Rex and take over the land. Suddenly, Fang is attacked by the traitors he has considered his subjects for so long and almost falls off the cliff, but is saved by Jarrett. The young dinosaur then receives bites from numerous velociraptors at the same time and uses his strong tail to eliminate them. Seeing Jarrett's performance in the fight, Fang recalls the day Logan perished and remembers that the T-Rex sacrificed his life to save him. When he sees all the velociraptors uniting to defeat the young dinosaur, Fang realizes what a big mistake he has made and regrets taking the throne, knowing that he has been a terrible king. Then, after asking Jarrett's forgiveness for all the pain he has caused, he knocks Dan off the cliff and then ends up falling when another velociraptor tries to attack him. Now that he's alone, the T-Rex has to face the other members of the group and manages to defeat them one by one. When they see their friends on the ground, Stan and the others decide to flee and Jarrett establishes himself as the new king of the Green Valley.